I want to do a couple of videos talking about the divine feminine, talking about patriarchy, and also some on oppression. So I'll be rolling those out over the coming weeks. This particular video, I want to talk about the trad wife movement, short for traditional wife. And I really feel like they've misappropriated the divine feminine and they're reducing it to this really narrow, patriarchal ideal of womanhood that centers on submission, domesticity, and these really rigid gender roles. They're doing this all the while calling it a divine feminine. And I think that we really need to be clear about this and talk about why the trad wife idea doesn't really fall within the realm of the divine feminine. Historically, and if we look at it in historical and spiritual context, the divine feminine is really about balance, power, sacred feminine energy, and the traditional wife, that trad wife ideology, distorts this in a few different important ways. First of all, they're equating the divine feminine with being submissive. This is not what the divine feminine energy is going for. The divine feminine ideals embody creation and wisdom. They have strength and intuition, and they also have autonomy. Many goddesses across cultures, such as Isis and Kali and Athena, were warriors and leaders and even protectors. So the trad wives misuse this by often portraying femininity about being obedient, passive, and catering to male authority, which directly contradicts the dynamics and the kind of multifaceted nature of the divine feminine. The second way that they kind of mess up on this is that they're stripping the divine feminine of its sacred power. The divine feminine ideals, it's associated with transformation, healing, and again, this really potent energy of creation. It's both in this literal sense of childbirth and nature and nurturing, and in a metaphorical one. It's about wisdom and spiritual guidance, this idea of destruction and rebirth, not just in the physical sense. The trad wives mess this up, I'll use that language. By removing the spiritual and the mystical aspects of femininity, and really kind of reducing it only to homemaking, beauty, and servitude to a husband, leaving out this like really powerful archetype of the female deities, the priestesses, and the healers. Saying there's anything wrong with homemaking, with beauty, but when you narrow it down and say that's it, that is the essence and the entirety of the divine feminine, you're getting it wrong. We're also looking at tying femininity solely to biological motherhood. This misses the point. We're missing a big piece here. So divine feminine energy encompasses all forms of creation. Do you feel how powerful that is? Not just biological reproduction. And again, there's nothing wrong with biological reproduction. It is powerful, but that's not the only energy of creation. With the divine feminine ideal, we're looking at artistic, intellectual, and spiritual creation. Trad wives totally mess this up by suggesting that a woman's ultimate role is to be a wife and mother. They're really failing here. They're failing to recognize the divine feminine's presence in women who are child-free or engage in a broader form of nurturing and creation. They really, really mess it up on gender fluidity and inclusivity. So in the idea, the ideal, the historical context, the divine feminine exists in all genders. It is an energy, not just a role assigned to women. Many cultures recognize divine feminine energy as something present in men as well. And in the gender fluid spectrum, it's in balance with divine masculine energy. The trad wives, man, they're sleeping on this one. The ideology rigidly enforces the idea that femininity belongs only to women and in a very specific heteronormative and binary framework, ignoring how divine energy and divine feminine energy transcends all these limitations. The fifth out of six, so 5 out of 6. I don't even like saying this, but they romanticize the patriarchal past instead of challenging it. Y'all, the divine feminine energy is going to challenge patriarchal structures. It's going to divine these, it is going to defend against these oppressive systems. So in many spiritual traditions that really honor the divine feminine, they're actually challenging patriarchy. They call for restoring balance, not reinforcing this strict, ugly, violent male dominance. The trad wives really glorify this 1950s and pre-1950s gender role, which were socially constructed and not representative of ancient or divine feminine. And they present this Holly homemaker as the natural order, rather than recognizing that gender roles have been fluid and diverse across history. If you want to be a homemaker, again, a mom, a stay-at-home mom, cool. But we don't want to be limited to just that. We don't want to say that all women need to be that, and that that's the only expression of womanhood or femininity. Finally, they co-opt feminist and goddess movement language. So some traditional wives use the language of empowerment to describe choosing submission, but this contradicts the core of a divine feminine power. The goddess movement and ecofeminism and womanism reclaim divine femininity as a source of strength and balance and resistance against oppression, not as a tool for reinforcing hierarchy, right? Like this toxic hierarchy. That's not what we're going for. That is not empowering. And I want to talk about this in another video, just like why these preferences might be showing up and people might be misappropriating that as empowered or feminist. That's too much for today. So the divine feminine is about power and wisdom. It's about transformation and balance, not about restricting women to domestic roles. Trad wives misappropriate it by stripping it of its spiritual and historical depth, reducing it to a patriarchal fantasy that ignores the strength, agency, fire, the power, and the sacredness of the feminine. I think true engagement with the divine feminine invites liberation. It invites creativity. It invites equality, not submission to outdated gender roles, to really looking at ways that we can be individuals on a spectrum, not squished into some dot along the spectrum, not squished into somebody else's idea and ideal of what feminine means under a patriarchal, heteronormative society. Love to know what you think. Thanks for watching.